Don't force anything on your life, not love, not timing, not healing, not becoming. Because life, when pushed, resists. And when life resists, it teaches its hardest lessons. I have seen what happens when people try to wrestle destiny into submission. I have watched tired hands gripping doors that were never meant to open, watched hopeful hearts pounding on walls that were never meant to fall, watched souls bend themselves into shapes that do not fit, all in the name of hurry, fear, and borrowed expectations. And every time, life whispered the same truth in 1,000 different ways. What is meant to arrive will not need to be dragged in by force. Forcing is born from fear. Fear that you are late, fear that you are behind, fear that if you loosen your grip even for a moment, everything will disappear. But life does not work on fear's schedule. Life moves on truth, on alignment, on seasons that cannot be rushed without consequence. The seed does not scream at the soil to become a tree by tomorrow. It rests. It waits. It trusts the dark long enough to grow roots strong enough to hold the sky. And you, too, are a living thing. You, too, require seasons. You, too, must be allowed to unfold. When you force love, it turns heavy. When you force happiness, it becomes fragile. When you force success, it hollows you out. And when you force yourself to stay where you are shrinking, your spirit begins to suffocate in silence. There is a difference between effort and force. Effort is honest. Force is desperate. Effort says, I will show up and do my part. Force says, I will make this happen even if it breaks me. Life honors effort. Life resists force. Some of you are exhausted not because life is difficult, but because you are carrying what was never yours to hold. You are pushing conversations that should have ended. You are maintaining connections that no longer nourish you. You are chasing answers that require stillness, not speed. You are forcing clarity where patience is the real teacher. Let go of the lie that struggle equals worthiness. You do not have to suffer to deserve good things. You do not have to bleed to prove your value. Ease is not laziness. Peace is not weakness. Rest is not failure. There is wisdom in allowing. Allowing does not mean you stop dreaming. Allowing means you stop strangling your dreams with anxiety. It means you water them, give them light, and trust their timing. It means you accept that what is delayed is not denied, and what is denied was never aligned. Some doors remain closed because behind them is a version of life that would cost you your integrity, your joy, or your self-respect. Some prayers go unanswered because the answer would have been a wound disguised as a blessing. Life is not punishing you when it says no. Life is protecting you when you cannot yet see the danger. Do not force people to choose you. Those who see your worth will not need convincing. Those who understand your language will not ask you to translate yourself into smaller words. Those meant to walk with you will match your pace without making you feel guilty for slowing down or ashamed for moving ahead. Love should not feel like a constant audition. Friendship should not feel like survival. Work should not require the erasure of your humanity. And growth should not demand that you abandon who you are to become who you think you should be. You were not born to chase approval. You were born to live in truth. And truth does not run. Truth waits. Truth stands still long enough for the right eyes to recognize it. There is a quiet strength in stepping back and saying, this no longer fits. There is courage in loosening your grip and allowing life to rearrange itself. There is dignity in trusting that what belongs to you will find you without violence. Stop forcing yourself to heal on someone else's timeline. Healing is not linear, and it does not perform on command. Some wounds close slowly because they are teaching you how to be gentle with yourself. Some scars remain visible because they remind you of how far you have come. You do not have to rush forgiveness. You do not have to rush closure. You do not have to rush becoming whole. Wholeness is not a destination you arrive at one day fully formed. It is a practice, a daily choosing, a soft returning to yourself again and again. There will be moments when nothing moves, when the silence feels too loud, when waiting feels like punishment. But stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is preparation. It is life gathering itself, aligning pieces you cannot yet see, arranging encounters you could never plan. Trust the pause. Trust the delay. Trust the redirection. What is meant to grow will grow without force. What is meant to stay will stay without begging. What is meant to leave will leave, no matter how tightly you hold on. And when something leaves, let it go with grace. Do not curse the season that taught you. Do not diminish the love that once lived there. Gratitude is a powerful release. It frees you from bitterness and makes space for what comes next. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing life because your path looks different from someone else's highlight reel. Comparison is another form of force, another way of telling your soul it is not enough. And your soul has never been wrong about its pace. There is a rhythm to your life that only you can hear when you stop drowning it out with noise. When you stop forcing outcomes. When you stop arguing with reality. When you stop demanding certainty from a future that requires trust. Listen closely. Life speaks softly when it wants you to learn something important. It speaks through discomfort, through restlessness, through repeated endings, through sudden peace where chaos used to live. And one day, you will look back and realize that the moments you thought were setbacks were actually releases. The doors that closed were saving you. The waiting was shaping you. The letting go was strengthening you. Nothing forced will ever feel free. Nothing rushed will ever feel whole. Nothing stolen will ever feel earned. So breathe, unclench your hands. Soften your shoulders. Allow life to meet you halfway. Because when you stop forcing, life begins to flow. And when life flows, it carries you exactly where you need to be. What is meant for you arrives without struggle, because truth does not need force to recognize itself. When something belongs in your life, it does not require you to chase it breathless, to explain yourself endlessly, or to diminish who you are just to make it stay. It moves toward you with a quiet certainty, the way morning finds the sky without being summoned, the way breath returns without being begged. Struggle often comes not from destiny resisting us, but from us clinging to what is misaligned and calling it effort. There is a deep misunderstanding that says love must hurt, success must exhaust, and purpose must be earned through constant tension. But what is meant for you feels different. It may challenge you, but it does not consume your peace. It may require growth, but it does not demand self-betrayal. It may arrive slowly, but it does not leave you feeling unseen or unworthy along the way. What belongs to you carries recognition, a sense of familiarity that settles into your spirit rather than shaking it. Many people confuse attachment with destiny. They grip tightly, afraid that if they loosen their hold, everything will disappear. But what disappears when released was never rooted deeply enough to remain. What is real does not vanish in silence. What is real does not need constant reassurance to exist. It stands firm even when you step back, even when you stop proving, even when you rest. Struggle often feels dramatic, loud, and convincing. It makes you believe you are fighting for something important. Yet life does not require you to suffer to claim what is yours. It requires honesty, patience, and the courage to let what does not flow naturally fall away. When something is meant for you, it meets you in your authenticity, not in your exhaustion. There is ease in alignment that many overlook because they are addicted to intensity. Ease does not mean there will be no work. It means the work will feel purposeful rather than punishing. It means effort will be met with response, care with care, presence with presence. You will not have to shrink or perform to be chosen. You will not have to explain your worth to be valued. Sometimes what delays arrival is not timing but resistance. Resistance to releasing old stories, old fears, old identities that no longer fit who you are becoming. Once you loosen your grip on what was never meant to last, your hands become free to receive what has been waiting patiently for you to make space. Life is not a battlefield where blessings are stolen through force. It is a current that responds to alignment. When you stop swimming against it, you realize it has been carrying you all along. What is meant for you moves with your becoming, not against it. And when it arrives, it feels less like a victory won through struggle and more like a truth finally recognized. Trusting life dissolves fear-driven urgency because fear is always in a hurry and trust is never rushed. Fear whispers that time is running out, that opportunities are scarce, that if you do not act immediately, you will be left behind, forgotten, replaced. It tightens the chest, quickens the breath, pushes the mind into constant motion. Trust, on the other hand, slows the pulse. It allows space. It understands that what is real does not vanish just because you pause to breathe. Urgency born of fear is not intuition. It is survival pretending to be wisdom. It convinces you to say yes when your spirit is saying no, to stay when your soul is tired, to move before you are ready, to grab what is available instead of waiting for what is aligned. It creates noise so loud that you mistake panic for purpose and pressure for progress. When you trust life, you stop treating every moment like a last chance. You stop believing that everything must be decided now, fixed now, achieved now. You begin to see that life is not withholding from you, but preparing you. That delay is not rejection, but refinement. That pauses exist not to punish you, but to protect you from choices made in fear. Fear-driven urgency does not come from desire, it comes from lack. It is the voice that says you are not enough as you are, that you must hurry to become something else before time exposes you. Trust quiets that voice. Trust reminds you that becoming is not a race, that growth unfolds at the pace it is meant to, that rushing the process only creates fractures beneath the surface. When you trust life, you no longer chase outcomes as if they are fleeing from you. You understand that what belongs to you is not running. You stop forcing conversations, forcing connections, forcing clarity. You allow answers to arrive in their own language, through experience, through observation, through stillness. You recognize that clarity cannot be bullied into existence. Urgency rooted in fear often disguises itself as ambition. It praises exhaustion. It rewards restlessness. It glorifies the constant push. But ambition without trust becomes self-abandonment. It disconnects you from your body, from your intuition, from your sense of enough. Trust brings ambition back into balance. It allows you to work without panic, to strive without desperation, to dream without sacrificing your peace. There is a certain dignity in trusting life. It is the quiet confidence of knowing you do not need to grasp at every opportunity, because the right ones will recognize you. It is the strength of waiting without bitterness, of moving without anxiety, of choosing without fear of missing out. Trust teaches you that missing what is not meant for you is not loss, it is alignment. Fear-driven urgency keeps you focused on what could go wrong. Trust shifts your attention to what could unfold naturally. It changes your relationship with time. Time stops being an enemy and becomes a companion. You stop racing against the clock and start moving with rhythm. You learn when to act and when to pause, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to hold on and when to release. Many people fear trusting life because they confuse trust with passivity. But trust is not inaction. Trust is conscious participation without control. It is doing your part and releasing the outcome. It is showing up fully without demanding certainty. It is planting seeds without standing over the soil, digging them up every day to check if they are growing. Urgency demands guarantees. Trust accepts uncertainty. Urgency says, prove it now. Trust says, I will see it when it arrives. Urgency tightens the grip. Trust opens the hand. And in that opening, something remarkable happens. The body relaxes, the mind clears, decisions become cleaner. You stop reacting and start responding. Fear wants speed because speed prevents feeling. Trust allows you to feel without drowning. It gives you permission to be present with discomfort without rushing to escape it. It teaches you that not every uneasy moment requires immediate action, that some emotions are meant to pass through you, not be fixed. When you trust life, you stop measuring your worth by how quickly things happen. You stop comparing your timeline to someone else's. You stop interpreting delays as personal failures. You understand that life is not linear, that progress is not always visible, that sometimes the most important shifts happen internally, quietly, where no one is applauding. Trust dissolves urgency by restoring faith in your own resilience. You realize that even if things do not unfold the way you expect, you will adapt. You will learn. You will survive. You will grow. Fear tells you that you cannot afford mistakes. Trust reminds you that mistakes are part of the design. There is relief in trusting life. Relief from the constant calculation, the endless planning, the obsessive need to control every outcome. Relief from the belief that one wrong move will ruin everything. Trust gives you back your breath. It brings you into the present moment where life is actually happening. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, urgency loses its grip. The need to rush fades. The pressure to decide immediately softens. You begin to act from clarity instead of panic, from alignment instead of fear, from intention instead of survival, moving forward with a steadiness that does not shake when answers take time, when doors close, when paths change, when life asks you to wait a little longer. Detachment allows clarity to emerge because clarity cannot live where attachment is tight, fearful, and desperate. When the mind is gripping an outcome, a person, an identity, or a version of the future, vision narrows. Everything becomes distorted by need. You stop seeing what is true and start seeing only what you want, what you fear losing, what you hope will save you from discomfort. Detachment is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is the gentle loosening of the grip so truth can breathe. Attachment says, I must have this for my life to make sense. Detachment says my life already has meaning, and I am open to what aligns with it. In that openness, something shifts. The noise quiets. The emotional fog begins to lift. You start to notice patterns you were too invested to see before. You recognize when something is draining you instead of nourishing you. You hear your own intuition again, no longer drowned out by anxiety and expectation. When you are attached, every small change feels like a threat. Every delay feels personal. Every silence feels like rejection. Detachment removes the personalization. It creates space between what happens and who you are. It reminds you that events are information, not verdicts on your worth. With that distance, you can observe instead of react, understand instead of assume, choose instead of cling. Clarity does not arrive in chaos. It arrives in stillness. And detachment is what creates that stillness. When you stop forcing answers, answers surface. When you stop interrogating life, life responds more honestly. When you stop chasing certainty, understanding begins to unfold naturally. Many people fear detachment because they believe it means losing control or losing connection. In truth, unhealthy attachment is what disconnects you from yourself. It keeps you locked in mental loops, replaying scenarios, imagining outcomes, rehearsing conversations that never happen. Detachment frees your attention. It brings you back into the present moment, where reality is clearer than imagination. Detachment allows you to see people as they are, not as you need them to be. You stop projecting potential onto someone who is consistently showing you their limits. You stop excusing behavior that does not align with your values. You stop negotiating your boundaries in the name of hope. Clarity emerges when illusion dissolves, and illusion cannot survive detachment. When you detach from outcomes, you begin to focus on alignment. You ask different questions. Not will this work, but does this feel true? Not how do I make this happen, but is this meant to happen? These questions are quieter, but they are wiser. They lead you toward decisions rooted in self-respect rather than fear. Detachment also changes how you experience uncertainty. Instead of rushing to fill the unknown with assumptions, you allow it to exist. You understand that not knowing is not a failure, but a phase. Clarity often requires time, and detachment gives time permission to do its work. There is a kind of emotional maturity that comes with detachment. You learn that you can care deeply without losing yourself. You can love without control. You can desire without desperation. You can hope without attachment to a specific form. This balance brings discernment. You start to sense when to engage and when to step back, when to hold on and when to release. Detachment removes the urgency to fix everything immediately. It teaches you that some situations resolve themselves when you stop interfering, that some answers arrive only after you stop asking the same question from the same place. That clarity is not something you chase, but something you receive when you are ready to see it. When you detach from the need to be right, clarity sharpens. When you detach from the need to be chosen, clarity strengthens. When you detach from the need for external validation, clarity becomes internal. You stop outsourcing your knowing to other people's opinions, reactions, and approvals. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer control your vision. You feel disappointment without losing direction. You feel desire without losing judgment. You feel fear without letting it dictate your choices. This emotional steadiness creates a clear inner landscape where insight can arise. Many of life's lessons repeat, because attachment keeps you from understanding them the first time. You stay too close to the story to see its message. Detachment pulls you back just enough to recognize the pattern. And once you see the pattern, you are no longer trapped inside it. Clarity often comes with simplicity. Detachment simplifies. It removes excess emotion, excess narrative, excess expectation. It brings things down to what is essential. What remains is easier to understand, easier to respond to, easier to trust. When you are detached, silence becomes informative instead of frightening. Waiting becomes reflective instead of painful. Change becomes revealing instead of destabilizing. You realize that clarity was never missing, only obscured by your need to control the outcome. Detachment allows you to walk away without anger, to stay without self-betrayal, to choose without guilt. It restores your agency. It reminds you that you are not powerless, even when you do not have all the answers. It gives you the confidence to say, I will know what to do when it is time to do it. And in that space of non-attachment, clarity rises quietly, not as a dramatic revelation, but as a steady knowing, a calm recognition, a simple understanding that feels less like discovering something new and more like remembering something you always knew. Ease is the natural language of truth, because truth does not need to shout to be heard. It does not arrive with chaos, confusion, or inner conflict. It settles quietly, fitting into place without resistance, like something that has always belonged. When something is true for you, your body recognizes it before your mind tries to question it. There is a soft yes in your chest, a sense of rightness that does not demand explanation. Ease is often misunderstood. Many people mistake it for laziness, for lack of ambition, for weakness. They believe that if something feels easy, it must not be valuable. They have been taught to associate worth with struggle, pain, and sacrifice. But truth does not injure you to prove itself. It does not require you to abandon your peace to earn it. What is true aligns with you rather than working against you. When you are moving in truth, you may still face challenges, but the challenges do not feel like punishment. They feel purposeful. They stretch you without breaking you. They teach without humiliating you. There is effort, but not exhaustion. Movement, but not panic. Even in difficulty, there is an underlying steadiness, a feeling that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Ease shows up when you stop forcing yourself into roles, relationships, and paths that are not aligned with who you are. The moment you stop pretending, stop performing, stop trying to be palatable to everyone else, something loosens inside you. Breath becomes deeper, decisions become clearer. You no longer have to rehearse your words or defend your instincts, you simply are. Truth does not demand constant justification. If you find yourself endlessly explaining why something feels right, it may be because you are trying to convince yourself rather than listening to yourself. Ease does not argue. It does not debate. It rests. And in that rest, it becomes unmistakable. Many people live in constant tension because they are speaking a language that is not their own. They say yes when they mean no. They stay when they are meant to leave. They chase when they are meant to receive. Tension is the signal that something is out of alignment. Ease is the signal that you are in truth. Ease does not mean life becomes predictable. It means you stop resisting what is unfolding. You learn how to cooperate with reality instead of fighting it. You stop asking life to be different so you can be at peace, and you begin to find peace within life as it is. That shift changes everything. When something is true, it simplifies rather than complicates. It brings clarity instead of confusion. It may not answer every question, but it quiets the need to question constantly. You are no longer searching for signs everywhere because you feel grounded in your choice. You are no longer scanning for reassurance because you trust your inner knowing. Ease is also how truth teaches boundaries. When you honor what feels easy and aligned, you naturally step away from what drains you. You stop negotiating your limits. You stop tolerating what feels wrong just to avoid discomfort. Truth makes boundaries feel clean rather than cruel. There is a gentleness to truth that many people overlook because they are addicted to intensity. Intensity feels exciting, dramatic, important. Ease feels calm, simple, almost too quiet to be trusted. But truth does not need to impress you. It needs to sustain you. Ease is the feeling of not having to chase love, not having to force conversations, not having to manipulate outcomes. It is the relief of being met halfway. It is mutual effort, natural rhythm, shared presence. When truth is present, connection flows without strategy. When you ignore ease, life often becomes louder. The signs become sharper. The lessons repeat themselves with increasing force. Not as punishment, but as guidance. Life keeps redirecting you toward truth until you are willing to listen in the language it speaks most clearly. Ease allows you to stop proving yourself. You realize you do not need to earn your place in spaces that are meant for you. You do not need to overextend, overgive, or overexplain. You are welcomed as you are, and that welcome feels steady, not conditional. Truth feels spacious. It gives you room to grow without pressure. It allows you to change without shame. It does not trap you in rigid expectations. Ease gives you permission to evolve while staying connected to yourself. When you follow ease, your nervous system begins to heal. Your body no longer lives in constant alert. Your mind becomes quieter. You are able to respond rather than react. Decisions come from clarity rather than fear. You trust yourself more because you are no longer betraying your own signals. Ease teaches you discernment. Not everything that feels comfortable is true, but everything that is true carries a sense of inner coherence. Even when truth is challenging, it does not feel like self-erasure. It does not require you to abandon your values or silence your voice. There is a deep intelligence in ease. It knows when to move and when to rest, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to hold on and when to let go. It guides without pressure, invites without demand. As you learn to recognize ease, your life begins to reorganize itself. You spend less time in conflict, less time doubting your decisions, less time recovering from situations that never should have drained you in the first place. You begin to choose what supports you rather than what depletes you. Ease is not something you create through effort. It is something you allow by honoring truth. The more honest you are with yourself, the more ease appears. The more you respect your inner signals, the clearer your path becomes. Truth does not rush you. It does not threaten you with loss if you pause. It waits patiently, knowing that when you are ready, you will recognize it not by how hard it makes you fight, but by how gently it lets you breathe.